Now, the Palin Update with Kevin Scholla presents Liberty and Legacy. Here's Tamara Colbert.
Cuba is not glamorous. This week, this constant pro-Cuba propaganda in magazines, television, and of course, opening our new U.S. Embassy in Havana really has me ticked off, quite frankly. The last straw for me was opening a fall fashion magazine that described Cuba as a glorious capital in all its faded grandeur. And as I looked through the spread, it was sad because it wasn't faded grandeur or even shabby chic. It was a disgusting and dirty ghetto. And my heart went out to all those Cubans that had died in the struggle during Castro's revolution and beyond over the last 54 years because they didn't want communism. They wanted freedom, freedom of expression, liberty, individuality. And it made me sad, all this glorification and promotion of Cuba as something special when it really isn't. And what was even more incredible was that the middle photo that was 2 pages long in the middle of this spread was titled Decayed Decadence and gave this panoramic picture from a rooftop overlooking Havana. And what did you see in the window frames of all these apartments in downtown Havana? Not a thing. No glass, zero, and in some cases shards of glass where the window had long ago been broken. My goodness, it looked like downtown Detroit. That's what we get under socialist policy. Decrepit, unkempt, dirty, and depressing places to live. Detroit, Havana. I rest my case. Once again, the American people have been stung by a hapless president who's capitulated to Cuban terrorist thugs and murderers. Not only first by establishing relations and then ending the sanctions, but now the final nail in the coffin is opening a U.S. embassy there. I believe that before Obama leaves office, he is going to close Guantanamo Bay and return it to the Castro brothers. Do you want to know what America got out of this? Not a doggone thing. Zip. Zero, nada. And in fact, Cuba at every turn has made sure to remind us there are not going to be any changes to their government. Cuba's top diplomat for U.S. Affairs, Josefina Vidal, told the AP that changes in Cuba are not negotiable. And just because we improve relations with the U.S., Cuba will not give up the principles it believes in. My goodness, this is like the Three Stooges of foreign policy. And John Kerry over the weekend told the press that the U.S. will not give Cuba a pass on human rights violations. Obviously, Kerry has spent too much time on his yacht and his wakeboard to remember what's happened on that tiny island over the last 54 years. If we want to talk abuses, some of which are detailed by Human Rights Watch, we can talk arbitrary imprisonment, unfair trials, execution. Hey, this is Bernie Sanders style, everybody. I hope you tell somebody who favors Bernie Sanders to wake up. Cuban law limits freedom of expression, freedom of association, freedom of assembly, freedom of movement, and there's no freedom of the press. Thank you, Castro brothers. And we can thank Che Guevara, who has to be included in the debauchery and terror in Cuba over these last 54 years. This manifestation of a cult of Cuba and Che Guevara is disgusting. It's deplorable. And it actually shows the willful ignorance of these Hollywood elite, businessmen. We can talk Burlington Coat Factory, Urban Outfitters, and other stores who carry Che Guevara's face emblazoned on T-shirts and other accessories. They just forgot to leave out the few simple facts that point to Che Guevara as one of the most heinous murderers of the last 100 years. And he himself was personally responsible for more than 2,000 deaths. The deaths of 2,000 plus Cubans who wanted freedom, who wanted to stand up, who wanted to practice religion. Cuba is officially atheist, according to Fidel Castro. We know how evil the Cuban regime has been over the last 54 years, and we know it especially under Guevara because he left written testimony of his cruelties and the fact that he was enamored of other people's deaths. In April 1967, in a speech, Here's a quote: "Hatred as an element of struggle, unbending hatred for the enemy, which pushes a human being beyond his natural limitations, making him into an effective, violent, selective, and cold-blooded killing machine," end quote. This, folks, is socialism. I'm speaking to the choir. I encourage you this week. Please, you see a Bernie Sanders sticker on a car, you see a Hillary Clinton sticker on a car, we must stand up or we are going to be sent to the gulags and the prisons, and our country will be unrecognizable. And it almost is now. This is Cuba. This is communism. This is what Russia was. This is what Cambodia was. And Vietnam under communist rule. This is North Korea. Turning human beings into cold-blooded killing machines, atheist in nature, and no freedom, human rights violations everywhere. It is what Obama wants. It is what the progressive wants, and they see themselves as ruling all of us under this type of regime. I will not stand for it. This is my country. This is your country. We must protect her. Glorifying Castro's communist Cuba is exactly what Obama and the progressives want. It is one step closer to this fundamental transformation because Americans today are so much farther removed from the torture, terrorism, and murder 54 years ago. Cuba isn't a color-rich, warm island unless that color is red from the bloodshed by so many who wanted freedom. Freedom to practice religion, freedom of association, freedom of assembly, and freedom of expression. They get none of that under the Castro regime. There are still many who dream and who are willing to risk their lives to get on a tiny inflatable raft or an inner tube with the hope of reaching a promised land of freedom and 90 miles to their north that represents light, liberty, and life. Liberty and freedom give hope. They elevate people. We must not forget that. We must remember that. I want to know what you think of Obama normalizing relations with Cuba this week and opening an embassy for the United States there. You can tweet me at Tamara Colbert. I look forward to hearing from you.